Hello, everybody, once again. I hope that we solved all those technical issues. And we still are under the pandemic topic, which is very topical the entire year. And I will present you my paper that is still a work in progress. And I've been doing for some time this kind of analysis that is mostly empirical analysis, and reached to some point and I tried to combine a very efficient tool of moral communication with some other methodological approaches, like is critical discourse analysis, in order to try to summarize and to somehow put more light into what's happening in the media and public discourse during the a pandemic in Croatia. So this is the unit of analysis, the Croatian public sphere. So for the beginning, just a second, I need to. I think that there's no apparent statements on the huge effects that pandemic have been doing elsewhere in the world. What is remarkably important is that this pandemic also implies very vibrant moral communications with all implications that arise out of it. At some point I will shorten this presentation, and my intention is to make an article, publishable article that will came out of this paper, and in this sense also all your comments and suggestions would be very much appreciated. Okay, where's the lumen in the story? This is the usage of its a very specific conceiving of the moral communication, and this commonplace of as a distinction between esteem and disesteem, or respect and disrespect, that produces binary codes. So I have been in search for morally connotated binary codes or moral codes that appear in the public sphere. I think it's a very efficient tool that try, and I think that would help me to link that with particular social actors and social structures. So we are not linking with that lumen here anymore. It's more like a Foucaultian type of analysis when we try to see, to unfold which are the power games and diverse interests that are using moral debate and moralizing the discourse over the pandemic. Very broadly, I used the critical discourse analysis approach, which is usually very broadly defined as anything that can uncover connections between speech, language, and discourse in general with particular social structures. But again, this is very important emphasis. Still, I'm aiming at detecting moral codes that emerge out of the corona pandemic environment, which represent discursive elements that reflect particular positions of particular social actors. So when I defined this, and the next step, I needed to make very important methodological decisions, and here I have a serious headache, and still have, which source of media to analyze, whether that be mass media, whether it would be social media, public announcement of the official authorities, and the end, and still I think that probably the best is to try to encompass as much sources as I can. The initial idea is to follow the official announcement of the National Civil Protection Authority of Croatia. I will use abbreviation on this. The idea was furthermore to analyze two largest daily newspapers, which one is inclined toward leftists, while the other is more toward right-wing politicians, political positions. And besides, there's also very popular web portals like one that is then again centered more towards left, and the other that is politically right. But during the analysis and as especially these online portals are basically provide you very short articles and often practically just overtake the statement that was of the authorities already published. And again, the issue is how to expand this analysis and other source of information. So how far did I go with my analysis, and what I managed to do until now is, for instance, periodization. I tried to, and post festum, I found several stages which are distinguished by the specific discourses that have changed over time. And there are some very specific breakpoints that put some novel light and or in short, there are very important and relevant social events that have been reflected in the discourse concerning pandemic. So the first stage is pre-pandemic, the second peak of the pandemic, the third one is the end of lockdown and pre-pulse period. The fourth I named as a wide opening, and the last, or the current one, we are still being into. I just disappeared, but I think we need some more light, please, if I may ask you. Just put, okay. So now here again, and why I put this peak and the second wave into the brackets, because it's very relative. What the data basically show is that here's the graph that represents incidence of positive cases, COVID-19 positive cases in Croatia, starting from the middle of March until the current days. So when we see this frequency, and this is a number just to make it much easier, this is a number 100, 200 and slightly more than 300 cases per day. We see that basically the first wave is not so much not so many cases were registered there. Then we have a very almost a flat graph or long time, and then increase of the number. And I think that my periodization of these 5 stages to some point also is very suitable and reflect those numbers. Okay, very shortly, this pre-pandemic stage is was until the first case was registered. And there's the important stress here is that basically there weren't moral debate, and there wasn't moralization within this period. So because if you not have cases, or you not have the people, you need to be constantly morally provoked and to raise the feeling of guilty upon them, then the moralization is not in case. There basically no this esteem and disesteem kind of categorization and during the moral communication. Okay, the important date here is the February 25, when the first case was confirmed in Croatia. This picture below, maybe some of you can recognize this. This is very famous football match in the Champions League between Atalanta from Bergamo and Valencia. And in this context, the important information is that the first case has claimed to be on that match, and basically officially the COVID in Croatia was imported from Italy due to this match. And now the moral communication, very strong moral communication begins, and with very very negative connotations and disrespect that was addressed towards the people that were whether infected or were potentially confected that were imposed under the self-isolations. So who are the bad guys, under quotation and brackets again? The people who returned to Croatia from winter vacations, various kind of touristic trip, the workers that were employed abroad and who returned back to home, and even residents from larger cities who moved in their written houses. For instance, there was a very strong moral communication in negative terms towards the Zagreb citizens who who went to their houses on the island of Beer and brought infection there. So this respect was very, very huge, and moralization was tremendous. Okay, this paper is to some extent descriptive, although I would like to summarize all and get out some of this material. Something, but okay, information with respect to that are very, very important. One of the specificities toward Croatian case is that the lockdown measures were very, very heavy, very strict, according to some analysis that was also published by the independent researchers. Was that Croatia, respecting the number of infected cases, was among the 3 strictest quarantine they were imposed in the entire world, and that also explains very low numbers within these guys, these people that you can see on the left hand side of the slide, they are a member of this National Civil Protection Authority, and during the peak of the pandemic, they were literally represented as heroes. They were good guys among the medical staff, members, employees in the supply chain, etc., who were active in that period. These people from the Civil Protection Authority were even drawn by the children's by the children as superheroes who will protect them from this COVID very disastrous, very dreadful disease. So that was such representation. So moral communication was very intensive, and it leads toward the moral disqualification and even stigmatization of people that were bad guys. And moral codes that I detected, and at least I conceive it as a moral code, it's even be a bioterrorists or bioterroristic. That was also one statement of the lady from the National Civil Protection Authority. Then we have, on the other hand, heroic. We have egoistic against empathic as one distinction, and responsibility and non-responsibility as a very important distinction. That is, I think, one of the codes that is probably the mostly used also currently. During that period, I will stay in that period, I will devote it much time, is also the phenomenon as the denunciation of neighbors and a very huge moral disrespect toward the people who were imposed and they needed to go to the self-quarantine. And it was a very interesting case of one peasant who were in the quarantine and broke the quarantine while trying to fertilize the soil in his land. And therefore, he was charged by 8,000 kuna. It's slightly more than 1,000 euro. It's Croatian standard. It's quite huge money. as a penalty because of breaking this rule. And there was more than 1,050 registered cases of breaking the self-isolation in this early stage of pandemic. Okay, this heroic discourse and this side of the moral code was even amplified and intensified because it was intertwined also with the horrible earthquake of 5.5 according to Richter that was recorded in Zagreb at the end of the March. So when we follow the media and all discourses that are around it, there is like very honorable terms according towards the people that was included, also civils in resolving the negative effects of also a catastrophic earthquake. The interesting moment in this discursive field is invocation of war rhetoric, literally, and also kind of reappearing the discourse that took the place in the 90s when the war has been took place in Croatia. So this is the one of the statements of the prime minister, former and current one, and we are in war with virus. So it's also a kind of indirect moral pressure that has been based upon the citizens. Okay, I will try to skip something because the time is running. What's interesting in this media field in public space, it was present a total marginalization of skeptical discourses, because as the people who are claiming or try to diminish the size and scales of the pandemic and the threats was absolutely marginalized from the media. And what is interesting, and in my analysis, what came that only right-wing's media opened a certain space for such voices. So this gentleman in the photo, he's very controversial TV speaker, and his TV show was occasionally even banned due to hate speech and such things. But he was one of the very few journalists, let's say, who opened some space to doctors who claim that Corona and COVID-19 is not dangerous, more danger than is that is flu. Okay, and here we also have another codes that have appeared from the skeptical side, let's say, from this type of observers, trustworthy and manipulated, and true and false. So as these are medical doctors, then is a kind of code specific to science also came into the play. Okay, the tendency in this peak of the pandemic stage, the second stage, according to my periodization, is marked by a radicalized moral dispute, and as a interesting moral mark, this you can often find in articles in newspapers. The label as bad guys are labeled as genius, like genius in self-isolation invited friends to repair the house or something like that. It's something that you often find. Okay, the National Civic Authority is represented as a political expert body, and there is a apparent dominance of presence of these people and representative of this body in within the media. Okay, the third stage is in my periodization mark with commenced on at the beginning of May. Why the end of strict ban took place in that period, and gradual relaxation of very strict measures took place, and at the discursive level, this stay home, which is elsewhere present a discursive label, was switched into stay responsible. And the specific again, and this is very interesting from the perspective of critical discourse analysis. The pre-elections period had started, and now the moral debates got totally new elements. It turns out that some members of that very popular heroic body are members of the one specific political party, which is also try to instrumentalize the results and positively represented results of very low cases of infected people into their pre-voting advertisement in their campaign, and that campaign was extremely successful since this Croatian Democratic Union recorded the most convincing victory at polls ever in Croatian circumstances. Okay, and when look after the moral codes that were present in that campaign, which is also interesting, it's always closely, tightly interconnected with moral debate over a pandemic. The code safe and unsafe also appeared. So in the end, that party, which was before, during the pandemic and after the pandemic, at position, reclaim their victory very convincingly. So it's also a very, I think, apparent case of how moralization also has been employed into political purposes. Okay, then what's apparently clear that Corona is not just a medical issue. So, and in that period also some other skeptical voices appeared. Okay, I will short it. Some very obvious inconsistencies also appeared there in that period, because, for instance, I will press this link on an article and on a statement, but okay, the connection is quite slow. Okay, but I won't wait on that. But just I said, one of the member of this civic authority body claimed that self-isolation is not an obstacle to get voting, and the ones that was previously charged by a quite huge amount of money is now became something that is here is in Croatian, the people in the self-isolation will be allowed to go to the voting polls, and it was additionally said, okay, if they are in self-isolation, they are not even, it doesn't mean that they are sick. Okay, so just need to come back to my, okay. After the goal was achieved from the perspective of that political party, the summer finally started and everybody forgot about the Corona, and the borders were open because of expected coming of the tourists, and tourism is, I suppose that is very well known. It's one of the most important branches, economic branches in Croatia. Therefore, what was interesting, interest of the authorities to open, and also economic actors to open the borders. And what was even surprisingly, nobody expected so, there was a considerable number of visits, especially at the northern coast of Adria, has been recorded. And when you got there, and this is one of the pictures, quite contrary to Dubrovnik nowadays, it was almost 2 months ago on the island of Murter, is the mid coast site. It was really crowded elsewhere, starting from the mid towards the north coast. Okay, and then again, the increase of number have been detected, and wedding parties and parties of youngsters were detected as hotspots of the spreading of the infection. And again, there was a moralization of behavior of young people and of other non-responsible who don't care about the health of the entire population and broader and the tourists and all. Okay, and now we came into the final stage, and I'm close to the end of this presentation. The second wave, although according to numbers, it's very hard to say which is the first, which is the second, and how to define this. But basically, it's not the crucial thing. After August 17, and I picked up this date as a date since Austria, very important country for incoming visitors, put Croatia on the red list, and then traveling suspension were introduced also by the dozen of other countries. And what's happening in Croatia is a kind of insecurity, how the autumn will look like, how the new school year will look like, how to organize plenty of things. And what is obvious, on the other hand, the increase of skeptical discourses are on the rise. And not last week, but 2 weeks ago, also the Festival of Freedom. This was the banner of the anti-corona protest that was held in Zagreb. It gathered around, according to some statistics, official information, around 3,000 or 4,000 people. But that is, again, very interesting. Mostly extremist right-wing guys are active in this kind of protest, while the other, because of that, try to distance and not to merge into this ideologically sensitive spirit. And what you can see in this poster is COVID is a lie, as something that is openly against this moralization of and trying to impose in the underlying the seriousness of the COVID pandemic. And the code that I extracted here, detected, are idiots. And on the other side of the distinction is are reasonable people, and then again, those who are manipulated and those who are free. Okay, and that's maybe as additional information. During this skeptical reaction and objectives towards the entire agenda of how to deal with the pandemic, the whole case, because of some suits, ended up at the Constitutional Court, and Constitutional Court should estimate whether some decisions and instruction of the civic protection bodies are legitimate or not. And information 2 days ago is that except one out of these 9 contentious decisions, only one was abandoned, but while the other, including those of wearing masks, are estimated as legitimate. Okay, and we will see what will happen in the future. According to my researcher's plan, it's to compile all this material, which is very huge, into a paper. And for myself, I estimate that this combination of and extracting one specific concept of moral coding and moral communication of Luhmann, combined with critical discourse analysis, can brought some more light into what's happening during this debate. And if I'm referring to the Luhmann particularly, the evident statement is that he was totally right, of course, And moral communication is very contentious form of communication that imply conflicts and to some extent maybe it reduces complexity, but on the other hand, practically it's very disputable and a source of various conflicts. Okay, one of the ideas, and I will definitely start with this, is that maybe that came out of this discussion that we have had today, is maybe to also try to see whether there are some differences between mass media and social media, as in the mass media, you cannot see skeptical or anti-corona, or very rarely, especially in the first stage, type of estimation or discursive label, while on the other hand, social media have opened for also for the more critical reactions toward the moralization and this kind of imposed moral debate. Thank you very much.